There we go. Okay, you guys, we're gonna try this again. Sorry that we got disconnected. Hopefully we can stay connected this time. Okay, so tonight we are gonna talk about should bridleless horses be getting more credit in the freestyle classes, the freestyle reining classes. And I'm gonna go back through our intro, so if you already caught it, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to get signed back on. But if you're new here, my name is Lindsay. This is my husband, Jess. We're here every Tuesday at 7:30, and we are answering questions that are sent in by you guys. So if you have a question that you would like to, or a suggestion for a topic that you'd like to send in, you can send that into our email, which is hayescofalph@gmail.com, and we will add it to our list and try to get your question covered as quickly as we can. Should you lose reception as you're watching this, try refreshing your screen. We have tried again. We're now on a new connection, so hopefully we're not going to get disconnected. But if you experience any trouble, then you can try refreshing your screen. If you need to watch the replay because you just didn't have good reception, or you're catching it a little bit later, then you can do that. If you're on our email list, then you'll have it delivered right to your inbox the following Tuesday after we've done the live. And we may have some visitors here tonight, by the way, because we're now in the house. But if you go to our website, you can also catch the replays by going to the education tab on our website, using the search bar to type in your keyword. So if you have, if you have a question about the bridleless, then you can type in bridleless, and any time that we talk about that in one of our lives will pop up for you with the timestamp. And then you can decide whether you watch it as an audio file or whether you watch it as a video like this. But that's the best way to get caught up with whatever we have going on. Before we get started, for the second time, I want to do a couple shout outs to some of the people that I know are watching. The first one is to Lori Stevens. Lori is a Momentum member, and she and I spoke on the phone earlier this week. She's enjoying the lives, and we were talking about buying horses, and she's been watching, she watched the pre-purchase exam live that we did. So I just thought that was cool. Wanted to shout out to Lori and thank her for tuning in. Wanted to do a shout out to Everly Pierce. Everly, if you're watching, hi, I missed you this week. I know you're quarantining. Hopefully I can get caught up with your lessons next week. Wanted to do a couple of shout outs for future riders, new babies that were born this week. One that belongs to Steph Kupfer, who has her horse booked in for training. She just had a baby last week. And one to Sam Speed, who has ridden with us and shown with us and just had a baby boy, baby Riley, yesterday. Congratulations to both of you guys and your families and your new bundles of joy. And also a shout out to Elise Tremblay. Elise has her horse here in training. Elise, I know that you're trying to catch all of these on Tuesday nights. And to Elise's friend Jen, who just finished her last round of chemo and has been watching all of our lives. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and we hope that you're going to leave us some comments and be part of this discussion tonight. Okay, good night. Okay, so tonight we are talking about should bridleless horses be getting more credit in the freestyle, and this was kind of born from a few questions. One was somebody who had sent me a few videos saying, why would the horse be scored better for this spin than that spin? Questions about why this horse didn't win when it didn't have the bridle on, which was what this person considered a higher level of difficulty than the others. And just some general things that we have seen as a trend online about people saying, what an amazing bond this horse and rider had that was a bridleless one. And over the years, comments about this horse should have won or this person was robbed or whatever. So we want to get into that. We want to hear what you guys think. So please get your fingers busy on your keyboards and let us know what you think about some of these things. But there were some things that we both wanted to speak to on this topic. So we're going to dive into that.
Okay.
So we got disconnected, you guys, and we came into our house to try to use a different connection. And on the way up, Jesse was singing, I like big bits, and I cannot lie. So you know how he feels about this one. Do you want to tell them more about what you think? Do you think are bridleless horses getting robbed? Should they be scored better?
No.
Okay.
I
sure?
NRHA has set up the rules to account for this. They have set up the rules to keep freestyle reining safe, so that everybody just doesn't drop the bridles and their horses run off, which I've seen.
Happens quite often, yeah.
The quality of reining has to come first. The quality of the horse doing the maneuvers, and in the rules, it even states that. Bridleless is great for the audience. Most people like it, especially when they haven't reined. I have done bridleless demonstrations. I have done bridleless sale horses and sales rings. And at those places, it is well received. In the show pen, the quality of reining has to be first. And they kept it that way so that freestyle reining did not become a freak show. I'm sure there's a better way of putting that.
Okay.
The run that I seen that a couple people were talking about, I do not know the gentleman. I know the trainer who helped the gentleman. He's a friend of ours. And his wife did bridleless and saddleless, and she got very popular over it and did very good jobs with it. Mm-hmm. I do not know this trainer, and I hope I don't offend him. I don't know if he's a nice guy or not. I have no idea. But the quality in the reining was not, it was 14th place instead of first. The horse didn't commit to the ground as hard, the horse didn't spin as hard, the horse did not circle as well. He put on a show, but that's not what the rules in the NRHA rulebook say freestyle is for. Freestyle at first is a reining, put to music, and then it is the show after that. There is a category in there where they score a point for artistic talent and whatever, but there's a bunch of categories where stopping, spinning, and all that stuff, changing leads, is scored on the quality of the reining first. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. They're trying to make the rules to what they think it should be, not what the NRHA rulebook is. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, yeah. I think that's the thing that a lot of people lose sight of, is that, for somebody who doesn't know about reining, or maybe doesn't know that much about showing horses, and they see somebody doing what to them looks like the same thing but without a bridle, they can't understand why that person didn't win. But it takes a fairly trained eye to identify the difference between a plus half spin and a zero spin, or some penalties in a maneuver. And it takes knowing the rule book and knowing the judging system fairly well. And that's one of the coolest things about the reining in the NRHA, is how detailed and specific the rule book and the scoring system are. And like, that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, that's the point of it, right? That's why everybody goes to the reining to compete, maneuver to maneuver. It's not you're almost playing a different game. If you're going in bridleless, you're almost playing a different game. And what somebody had suggested, and what I have, kind of thought, because I actually enjoy seeing somebody ride bridleless. When you sit and you watch the freestyle at Congress, sometimes it's fun to have some of those things that are a little different. There was somebody a few years ago who did one in the dark. It was like all lights, like it was all lit up and in the dark. That's fun. That's part of the entertainment. I can get behind people doing different things other than reining, that they like. If you really like riding bridleless and you're feeding your horse and watering it and deworming it and doing its feet and taking care of it and, making other people enthusiastic about horses, I can get behind that. However, this is a freestyle reining class. The rule book is very specific. The scoring system is very specific. So I don't think it's fair to go in, remove your bridle, have subpar maneuvers, and then blame the scoring system or blame the judges. That's not right. You know, and what somebody had commented was, I think it should be 2 separate classes. That's kind of what it is. You almost can't compare a bridleless pattern to a pattern with a bridle in it. Or if somebody, I guess you can. You can compare it, but if you think that you should win it, then maybe there needs to be a bridleless class where everybody competes as bridleless. You can't say, I'm going to go do this event, but I'm going to do it a little different and I expect to win. You know, that's not right. That's like going into a soccer game and, you know, shooting hoops and saying, well, they're scoring the goals differently. That's a different game. You can't change the rules of the game just because you want to do it differently.
I think the one that got me was when right off the bat he made the announcer do I shouldn't say made him do a speech, but in the intro they made a comment about this horse being trained a certain way, and they're trying to get people's emotions on that, but that's not how the judging system works. You need to know the rule book if you're going to show the reining, and like it or not, you are, and at the Congress, another thing to remember too is this was not one judge's opinion. There are multiple judges who are some of the better judges. The bigger events get the better judges. So you have better judges, multiple of them and I don't know if the freestyle does a high-low
Where they
or if it's
drop
just
one?
3 out. I'm
No,
not
I
even
think
sure.
it's 3. I think it's all 3.
So if it's 3 judges, you have 3 good judges sitting there side by side. So if one is really out to lunch, he gets criticized because the other 2 judges. Don't kid yourself. They want to stay in line. They want to do it properly. The quality has to be reining first. They have events for people that want to go bridleless, and that's fine. They have liberty classes. They have whatever classes they want to go to. But when you're entering a class, what did it pay, $6,500 to win this year?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's what
I think so. That sounds right.
If you're entering a class that costs the entry fees would be a couple $100. Couple $100 for your stall. By the time you enter that class and you get to Congress, you're $1,000 pretty much any which way you think about it. Know the rule book and don't worry about it. Do your job and it is what it is. And I don't think this guy, and as we're saying this, like we keep saying subpar,
you're kind of harping on one person about this.
Right. He didn't do a bad job. He did a good job training his horse. He did the maneuvers.
Yeah.
Bridleless, he did that.
Yeah.
Give him great credit for that. I don't know the gentleman. Like I said, I know his trainer, but I don't know him. Kudos to you and to the gentleman. I think that's great. But when the horse that beat him, or the horse that won the class, did the reining maneuvers in a more dynamic way,
better maneuvers, yeah.
That's what they're going to score.
Yeah.
And we see it a lot when we go to the shows. People who don't understand the rule book are the first to criticize. There's an old expression, sit at the table with the winners, the conversation is different. It's not about, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. It's how do I score better? How would I make that horse do better? If I'm showing this horse, how can I win something on that horse? And unfortunately, it's a contest. It's a contest for $6,500 wins, and I don't know how far down they paid. I didn't really look. But there's going to be some that don't jump up and some that do. And I don't know that the guy was, I don't know his opinion on it. Like I said, I don't know him. But everybody's opinion afterwards on Facebook and on all those social media stuff, it's amazing how they all have an opinion, but they weren't one of the judges there. And I feel like at any show that, before you get to gripe about it, and I don't care if it's on Facebook or otherwise, it's just a sentence people put out there, but read the rule book before you gripe about it on Facebook or talk about it, and then you know what you're talking about. I've seen it with every discipline over the years. you know, somebody doesn't like this, doesn't like that. And it's not an educated opinion of how that scored or how that was worked or how, you know, what penalties were applied. NRHA has the fairest system that they've ever come up with in the horse show world. Every maneuver is scored. It's all written down. You get to see it afterwards. You get to see it. You know, it's a good deal. The neat thing about the freestyle is it's watched by a lot of people. The bad side, when you have a lot of people watching it, you have a lot of opinions that aren't, you know, you have judges that are sitting in the 20th row drinking a beer with their buddies, and they're the experts on it. But it's great. Freestyle has been great for reining. It brings lots of people in. They see it. You know, it's been wonderful. To the point of actually his coach, him and his wife, Jessie and Stacy, I mean, would they end up on the Ellen DeGeneres show?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, from the freestyle. And they, you know, they're great ambassadors for the NRHA and for regular reining. It's a great deal. No matter what class it is, know the rules, and then you can gripe on it more that way. You know, whether, and I mean, I'll be the first to admit I don't like freestyle a whole lot. I've helped some people with it. I'm not artistic. I'm not fancy like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the best horse has to be a reining horse. It's still an NRHA.
Yeah.
Still an NRHA event.
Okay, so should we get into some of the comments that people are writing on here then?
Sure.
Okay. Where are we here? Definitely really like, so Sharon's saying really like Jess's explanation about the bridleless reining and scoring makes a lot of sense.
Of course I do.
Yeah, I mean, don't make him get a terribly big head, Sharon.
What was the one about Dan Huss?
Dan Huss did a good one, bridleless.
So anybody who doesn't know, Dan Huss, he used to be from Ohio, now he's from Arizona. Great horseman. Had a great mare.
An unintentional bridleless.
He goes to leave center, I think it was, during partway through his pattern.
Yeah.
And he's a shoe-in to win this thing. I mean, this is a great mare. And his bridle falls off.
Breaks.
Yeah, just falls down.
Undoes, yeah.
And that was a big thing because he kept going. He grabbed it, which made, because of the rules, he grabbed it to keep it on thing.
Yeah.
And he just went for fun and kept going. Mm-hmm. And he got more publicity on Facebook and everywhere because that bridle dropped. And the mare still did, the rest of her pattern was gorgeous. And she's just an incredible mare.
Yeah.
And he got more famous, I think, because he did it bridleless and got a 0 and got nothing out of it from the show than had he won the Worlds. And in my opinion, he would have won it. I mean, that mare was just phenomenal. So, I mean, whenever they talk about Dan Huss and
that brings up a good point where it's like the reining, when reining is done really well, you don't really use the bridle. Like, you don't need the bridle there. That's kind of the point, right? It's like that the horse is between the reins. You don't necessarily need the bit. So...
if his would have been freestyle, he would have won any freestyle there was. He did a great job.
His maneuvers were still, his maneuvers were still great. But like, I think that's a thing that some people miss too. Is like, they think, oh, well, that horse did it bridleless, so it must be way better than the others. Well, most of those horses that can go and compete at that level, I mean, they're not qualifying for Congress, but like most horses that can show at a fairly high level in reining can go bridleless no problem. You can drop a bridle and you can ride them around, and you know, it's not a problem. I think people who don't rein don't understand how broke the horses actually are. That you're using your bridle to, you know,
trained they are.
Tighten things up just a little bit here and there, just have a clearer communication with them. But the bridle is not used in the same purpose that a lot of people think. You're not using it to hold them back necessarily.
I would encourage everybody to pump in Dan Huss at the
Dan
World
Huss,
Show.
yeah, not right now.
With Mick Dreamy.
When we're done, yeah. And saying, Jess is right. I think competitors might be losing sight of the rules and focusing too much on the entertainment factor. The crowd isn't the judge. No, you're right, Anne. Laura is saying entertainment value can be good for drawing people to the sport, I think, but a lot of those people have loud, wrong opinions on the scoring. Yeah, I mean, bringing people in is super important. You know, and displaying horsemanship is super important, but the reining is the reining. You know, there is a scoring system there. It's there for a reason, so that the judging is consistent. And saying you can still entertain and focus more on those high quality maneuvers, which is my opinion, would be a better reflection on the sport. Christine's saying something about Gary Yadigan. Gary Yadigan's saddle came off years ago at Quarterama, likely the first to be saddleless. I didn't know that. I've never heard that story before.
He was it was like a tequila type song, like he was supposed to be a drunk Mexican. Okay. And everybody kind of thought, because he run in a circle and this thing just winged out. Gary and the saddle both. It was not bridle or saddleless because there was no rider on the horse either.
Oh.
And everybody thought it was part of the...
The saddle fell off and he fell off?
Well, yeah,
and everybody thought it was part of the freestyle?
Well, not everybody, but a lot of everybody was sitting there going, well, that's kind of funny, ha-ha, clapping. And
yeah.
And for anybody
so hold on. So Gail's saying, just joined, the quality of the maneuver comes first, but bridleless would count for difficulty, wouldn't it?
No, difficulty in the maneuver is your quality of stop, how hard that horse hits the ground, all that stuff. Artistic, which is where the bridleless stuff goes into, that is one maneuver or one score out of how many, because they score your 3 stops each get 1 score, your turnarounds each get 1 score, your lead changes each get 1 score, and then there is one thing for quality of maneuver,
like an extra maneuver box.
Yeah, not quality maneuver, I'm saying that wrong. Where it's like artistic and all that stuff. The judge does not care whether you have a bridle on or not. Now, if you have a bridle on and you say, well, when that horse spits the bridle out and pushes into the bridle, that's a bad maneuver. But the horse that I think everybody's talking about, and I don't mean to harp on this one guy, but the horse stopped, but he wasn't dynamic about it. The horse wasn't...
There was no credit.
Yeah, there was nothing where you went... There was no wow factor to it.
No speed, authority, or finesse. It just stopped.
Yeah, he did a good job, but he didn't... Not like the horses above
that won it, yeah.
And for anybody who... This is going back a bunch of years, likely... I don't know if it'd be 30 years ago now, but the gentleman that I worked for, Peter Van Aert, many years ago, did a freestyle back when freestyle was first coming in, where it was more artistic. He did a tiptoe through the tulips with a bunch of tricks and stuff, and it scored well back then. And they have refined the rules. Now his horse changed leads, it did whatever, but they refined the rules because they didn't want to go to a circus show and they knew it was going to head that way. They refined the rules to draw it back to a reining first with the artistic on top, but it had to be reining first. It had to be the maneuver first.
Yeah, so when people see like a horse coming in and doing dressage movements and thinking that that's going to get the horse extra credit, it doesn't.
That all goes into one score.
It just goes into one
thing.
score. You either get that point or you don't. And you can get that point by having some fun props or getting the audience involved or whatever, right? You can get that from a lot of different things without sacrificing the quality of the actual reining. So we've kind of harped on one person, and I don't like that. I don't like how that's kind of sitting, but
no, because
that person
I do give
kind
him
of
credit
represents a lot of people, where this is a thing that happens quite a lot, where a lot of people go in to the bridleless thinking that, like Gail kind of suggested, it's a higher level of difficulty, but that's only one very small part of the score. Let's talk about horses at Liberty, because that was another one of the questions, was how come horses at Liberty are not getting scored higher, because that must be much harder than sitting on them, but they're not being scored. The horse at Liberty is the horse that's being ridden that's being scored, right? Like a horse that's free? Like if somebody's riding one and then there's one that's free?
That's not reining then. You're not on top of it and controlling it.
Right.
That's a circus show.
Yeah. Okay, so Marie's saying, I think when people say he should have scored better, it's because the relationship he displayed with his horse was very lovely to watch.
Am I allowed to disagree on this?
Respectfully, yeah.
Okay.
I like Marie.
I like Marie.
Yeah.
I've known her for a long time.
Yeah.
When I see that horse and I see him not freely
Let's
moving
not
his
talk
feet,
about that horse specifically. Let's talk about horses in general. A horse that has a good relationship with a rider has a free flowing movement, has ears forward, has a number of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
A horse that does not has ears pinned, has a
bracy shoulders.
bracy shoulders, kind of a stiffer movement. So when you're looking at horses that are bridleless, don't be caught by the fact that they're bridleless and thinking that it's a magical bond that they have. There's still a lot of the same training maneuvers that are used, training methods that are used. Does the horse look like it's moving freely? Does the horse look like it's responsive? Does the horse look like it's happy? Those are still things that you need to watch. Just because it's not working with a bridle, don't kind of get caught up on that. The other thing is, most of them have some kind of rope or string or something that they're using. And a neck rope, when you are lifting up on a neck rope, goes into here, right? So I think where a lot of people think that riding bridleless is so much kinder, is it kinder to have a rope that's coming across your horse's windpipe versus having a piece of metal in your horse's mouth?
Used wrong, they're both wrong.
The answer is how it's used, right? So that's where you want to train your eye to look at, how is that bridle being used, or how is that neck rope being used? How does the horse respond, right?
To me, one that always shows up too when people go bridleless is when they circle them horses. Very few horses move free with their head in the balanced position. They usually have their head out and they're kind of doing this, and they're going around, but they're doing that. If you did that same maneuver
with a bridle
like that with a bridle, you're minus half all day long. And again, because it goes back to the maneuver first, no matter what aids we use. By the time we show those things, there's not a whole lot of pushing on the bridles and that kind of stuff anyways, or we're getting minus half, so we're not going to show that horse. And again, even the one that we're not talking about,
well,
I give him credit.
yeah,
he did a good thing.
He did a good job.
But where people are saying he should have won it,
yeah,
I'll disagree with, because the horse was slow-footed. He was stiff in the shoulders. The horse just was not as fancy a horse and going as fancy as the horse that won it. It just wasn't there. And when you read the rule book, that's first and foremost. But I do give the guy credit. He had, he did a good job getting the horse going around. So
Sally says she would love to hear what a good NRHA judge would say about it. Would say about bridleless versus not, or what do you mean about that, Sally?
The neat thing about it, you actually can hear the NRHA judges because they make NRHA judging videos.
Yeah.
And one thing I encourage everybody to do before
but not
they
for freestyle.
They did.
Are there any videos about freestyle?
There was some. There's lots of literature out there. Well, there's a rule book too, but there used to be a literature or a video out on what they're looking for and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's available anymore. It was a long time ago. And just for that reason, because they had to clear up, so there was no confusion. Because you always have to remember, NRHA does not want to zero anybody. Because you don't want anybody leaving mad. And you go in there, the same thing, like I've seen people, well, I only did 3.5 spins, I didn't do 4. You can do 7 in the freestyle, but you have to do a set requirement. They don't want to zero anybody. Everybody thinks the judges are after zero. Judges hate to zero people. You do not want to tell somebody that just drove to the horse show, spent their money on entry fees, put the time in to do their patterns and their props or whatever else they did in the freestyle, and then they get a 0 and the crowd boos them. It's always the judge's fault. They don't want to zero them. So they made the information available so that everybody could read it and have as much knowledge of what they are looking for. They do the same thing in the regular reining. I do know they've done it in the freestyle, but I don't know. That was a number of years ago. But it's out there.
Laura's saying, I think we romanticize the concept of a relationship. I think with horses, it's obedience. Bridleless can just mean really well broke or very obedient. I might be able to hop on a lesson horse and do bridleless. That doesn't mean we're bonded. Yeah, I would agree with you, Laura. It's not a bond is part of it, can be part of it when you're riding a horse, but a bond, a horse liking you is not going to get you very far when you go to show it in a coliseum with hundreds of people.
They need to respect it.
Yeah. Vicky, he had a great relationship with his horse. It was nice to see a different approach to training, but the maneuvers were not crisp, clean, or hard stops.
Bingo.
Sally thinks that it should be a separate class. I mean, they have a bridleless cutting. So Sally's saying if they take bridleless into consideration, etc., how it affects the maneuver or not, just how it impacts it. It doesn't. Having the bridler, you're still scored the exact same way, Sally. So penalties are the same, you know, minus half is the same. Like any of the scoring system is the same, whether you have a bridle or not.
Does Flicka do the maneuver?
Did they get turned? When they got cued, did they get turned? Did they get shut down? You know, was their speed, authority, finesse, was it correct? Like all the things that you normally would have are still there. It's just you don't have a bridle on.
I think when they do the bridleless cuttings, and I should have asked, but I don't know for sure, but I do not think there's any bridleless cutting that is any kind of sanctioning either. It's a fun class on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And if they want to do the same thing at a reining, they can do the same thing at a show. You know, you could have a bridleless, saddleless. Well, I remember one year, I don't remember, but everybody talked about it. Heck, one year at Congress, they even had just a stop contest. They got out on the track and had a stop contest. They quit that because it was wrecking horses, but you know, you can do whatever you want for fun. But if you're going to have an NRHA sanctioned event, and part of that also comes down to, and this was another argument that the people in the NRHA had, is a freestyle horse. What was happening is people weren't taking very good reiners because they didn't have the ability to settle, and they didn't have the ability to run a good clean pattern.
To settle as in like stand still and hesitate.
Right, and that's part of that pattern. And people could just spin them, stop them, run them real hard and get scored. And then people would say, well, my horse won a bronze.
Yeah, or
and everybody would say, but was it in the freestyle? Or was it in this?
Yeah.
And it goes on their lifetime earnings. So now if you start doing Liberty and these kind of things, that has nothing to do with reining. So now you have horses that have lifetime earnings in the reiners that are not good reiners. But they put on a show. So it becomes a little tricky that way. You know, you got to keep
So they don't do that. So it's a separate category. Like earnings for freestyle are a separate category, right?
That, and that's why they keep it where it's less of a show in the judges' cards, but you have to make sure that thing can stop, turn, and do the maneuvers.
Yeah.
Because then you are giving credit to the true reining horses for doing their job.
Yeah. I feel like we're a massive buzzkill on this topic. Do you? Like,
I don't think
people
we need to be
are
a
like
buzzkill. The judges are the buzzkill then because they follow the rules and people don't like it. But if you don't like
it, you have to uphold the integrity of the sport of reining, right? And like, you know, where reining came from. Like reining came from ranched horses, right? Horses that were working horses. Everybody got together to show off the best reined horse. It really doesn't make sense to have a bridleless horse when you think about it that way, right?
Well, what's the A general to rein horses to?
I
should know that off
by heart. Every
and steer them and stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't say bridles and doesn't say whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say dress them up in a costume and make fun of them.
No. Okay. Okay, so, I mean, to sum up, should bridleless horses get more credit in the freestyle? I see this topic floating around. There were some really good questions about this from a few different people over the last little while. I think for the most part we can agree that no, they shouldn't be getting more credit than they are. That it's kind of a different challenge. You know, which is, you know, we can respect that for what it is as well. Laura's saying, no, you're not a buzzkill. Reining needs to say as it is. There are lots of other venues for people to entertain at Liberty. Yeah. I think that, I mean, that's kind of a thing that happens in a lot of areas of riding or competition, where I feel like people want to, instead of focus on one specific area and getting really good at it, they kind of get to the point where it gets really hard and then start venturing into other things, tweaking other things, and
They make up classes,
make up their
and
own
make up things.
challenges and stuff, which is okay too, but it's not okay to then criticize the original event, I think.
Can't make up your own rules.
No. A lot of people like to do that.
We're not the buzzkill because I mean the judges wrote it down right.
Well, I think we're the buzzkill for, you know, like there's some people saying that they like the bond that horse had, but I mean, we're kind of saying like that's not a bond, that's obedience, right? I don't like to really say obedience, but that's the training. That's what you've made the horse feel familiar,